Tell me about your first memory of Karen.
Okay, after we moved back from Brazil, we moved to Lafayette and we bought a home on Thornbush Drive. And I was in third grade. And I went to Burtsfield School. And in third grade, I had Miss Pittman as my teacher, and I think Karen had Miss Tam. And I got to first meet Karen back in third grade when I started school there. I never was in her class until sixth grade. We were in Miss Paskett's class. And we were in that class together. And Karen had a good friend named Chris Heckey, and she was in that class with them. And then I was in that class with a good friend named John Van Kirk, and there was a couple of us boys. And Miss Paskett had, if you look at the front of the room with the chalkboard, Karen and Chris sat right over here by the door into the classroom. And then at the back of the classroom, there was about 4 rows of desks where us boys sat. And that's when I fell in love with your mom. She used to sit up in the front, and I was behind her, and we would always pick on her. Now the story is that we didn't have a closed school, so we didn't ride the bus. You found a ride to school, and Karen lived halfway between my house and the school. And Karen had this green 10-speed bicycle, and Chris had a red one. And she and Chris used to ride to school, and I had a brown 5-speed bicycle. And I was always wishing that as I would ride my bike to school, I would run into Chris and Karen, and I would follow them on their bicycle. And when we get out of school and they'd ride home, I always tried to make sure that I was right behind them so I could follow them home from school. But I remember in sixth grade, telling myself, one day I'm going to marry that girl. And I really liked her. I remember it's pretty creepy, but when we were in middle school, it was on the other side of the Happy Hollow Park, and we used to go home. We used to run home for lunch and run home for after school. And Karen would come down through the same park, and I'd follow her halfway, and then there was a point where we'd split off and we'd go different ways. And I always used to follow her home through the woods, and it was it is kind of creepy, but I had a great love for her. Then in seventh grade, I don't know, we went separate ways. And then in eighth grade, there was probably a 2-month period where, you go this dating stuff. And so she and I were kind of dating during that period, and I don't remember what fizzled out, but anyway, it fizzled out. So we had a brief moment in middle school together. And then in high school, she kind of got tied in with the older group and was hanging around with the older kids, and I had my own girlfriends during that period. But after our senior year, all Karen's friends had graduated, and she was off by herself, and it must have been, she didn't have any friends, and she was only working she only went to school part-time. She only went to school in the morning, then she worked in the afternoon, so she was doing half school. Anyway, she had a friend who was the manager for the basketball team, and all I remember is he and I were in chemistry class together. And it was coming up on the Christmas dance. I think it was the Christmas dance, maybe it was the fall dance, I can't remember. And Karen had talked to him and said, "Do you think Doug would be interested in going to the dance with me?" He says, "I don't know, let me check." So I remember him asking me in chemistry class if I'd be interested in going to the dance with her. And I can't remember at the time. I think I may have had a girlfriend that I was interested that lived down here in Indianapolis, and I was kind of spending time coming back and forth. But I said, "Oh, what the heck?" I said, "Sure, I'll give that a try." That can't be right. Maybe it was right. I can't remember now. Anyway, we started going out with each other. It was right at the very beginning of high school. Maybe Karen could give me a better... But anyway, we started dating in high school, our senior year. I took her all to dances at high school, and we just became very, very serious at that point. And then Mom was worried about me because she was worried that I was getting so close to Karen that I wouldn't go on a mission. And I had a hard time once I graduated to decide what I was going to do. So my mom talked me into going to BYU for a semester. And because I was late getting signed up, I wasn't signed up to start the normal session, so I had to go mid-semester. And then I ended up staying there for, I think it was a semester and a half until the end of the school year. Then I went on my mission. Yeah, that's what it did. Anyway, we kept in touch while I was off at school. What she didn't tell me was before I left for college, the church was important to me, so I remember the night before I left to go to college, I gave her a Book of Mormon, and I read to her Moroni 10, 3 through 5. I gave it to her and just didn't think a whole lot of it.
But she'd been to your house before for like family home evening and stuff,
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's not like this was the first time.
No, she used to try. She came to church with me a couple times. She went, I think she went to a couple state dances. So we did a lot of things together our senior year. I mean, everything I did, she did. And we grew quite fond of each other. And well, my first semester while I was out at BYU, she didn't tell me, but she started taking the missionary lessons. And then when I came home for Christmas, she surprised me and let me know that she was getting baptized. I think she got baptized on December 23rd, day before her birthday. And I had broken my Achilles tendon in my leg, so I couldn't baptize her. Is that right? I think that's right. I don't remember if I was an elder, whether I confirmed her or not. Anyway, I remember going to her baptism. I don't think I baptized her. I think Norm Heyman did. So she joined the church, and then I came home from school, and I was getting ready to go on my mission, and I had a little bit of summer that I got to spend with her before I left on my mission, and we were very fond of each other at that time. We had a very hard time saying goodbye. We found out through much of our married life, we said goodbye to each other, and it's always been hard to say goodbye. But we kept in contact throughout our mission. I remember praying a lot about whether she was the right one. And when she came home, or when I came home, Kevin Glover was having his wedding reception the night that I got home, and my stake president was President Glover. So I had to go over to his house, get released from my mission, and then participate in Kevin's wedding reception. And while I was there, the stake president said, "There's somebody very special who's would like to see you." My plan had been that I wasn't going to see her for like 2 or 3 weeks. I was going to give us a lot of space. So I wasn't prepared to go over and see her. So I went over and saw her. It was like old times. It's like we hadn't been gone. And I remember it was awkward being at the house with her mom and dad after a while. So we wanted to catch up. And so we jumped in the car like we always did. And we went down to Hort Park. And we went for a walk. And we started talking about things. And I believe it was hard for me to talk about marriage, so we called it the Big M. And we started talking about that pretty quick. And I can't remember, I think we were like engaged 3 weeks after I was home, and we were married 9 weeks after I was home. Wow. So we felt good about that. I remember we spent a lot of prayerful nights trying to get ready. It was very simple. I didn't have any money. And Karen worked at the Institute. And they have all these flower beds around the Institute. And they said they would pay me if I weed the flower beds around the Institute. So I did that. And again, I had, 9 weeks to get ready to buy a wedding ring. I think I paid $700 for Mom's wedding ring. It wasn't, back then it was probably a little bit more expensive, but it was very frugal, very simple. But we were married that August. So I got home, I can't remember, it was probably mid-July or mid-June. And we were married August 13th, which was pretty cool. Then we started school. She was finishing, I think she had 1 semester left at school. She finished her semester and then started working full time, and then I started, essentially I started all over, and so I started as a freshman, went 5 years. So that's our story.
That's a pretty good story.